Welcome to Wild Soul Gathering. I'm Dr. Sandra Marie, and I'll be your host for this episode of Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. Hello to all you wild souls out there. I want to send a special thank you to each and every one of you for taking time out of your day to join and listen to our guests as we discuss the many aspects of spirituality. To stay updated on our latest releases, please follow us, share with friends who may be interested, and if you feel so moved, a kind rating and review is always appreciated. In the tradition of happy hour, cheers to some new insights, peace, revitalization, and perhaps an aha moment that may change your life. Welcome to Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. This is Dr. Sandra Marie. In the house today, we have Diane Riis returning to the show. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into dreams, touch on who am I, and how do we find our passion and purpose for this life. Welcome back to the show, Diane.
Thank you.
Hey, we recorded a show back in early December of 2022. Doesn't seem that long ago, but it was.
No.
The show honestly covered many aspects of spirituality, and one of the things that we talked about were the Seth channelings, and you suggested some exercises, which I eventually did jump into, and I had some interesting results with when I tried the exercises, and I really wanted to discuss that with you today. Before we get started into that discussion, I would like to play the clip for the listeners to provide a reference point.
Who am I? And then you can also do this as you're starting to fall asleep. Close your eyes and see if you can feel where the source of your breathing comes from. It's not just your lungs. It's not just the autonomic nervous system. Your breath, and a lot of in the Eastern tradition, when they say your breath is breathing you, follow that thread a little bit and see if you can find out, if my breath is breathing me, what is the source of that breath? What is the source of my life? Just as you're drifting off to sleep and starting to ask those questions. Like, I can't remember who said it, but they said the only important question is that you should ever ask is, who am I?
Diane, that was really powerful, and I actually went into that exercise, and I did it 3 different nights. And I'll be honest with you, the first night I did it, I don't really consciously recall anything happening or not happening. Not sure what happened unconsciously. So I did do it a couple more nights. When you spoke of it during that interview, it felt really powerful, and it resonated with me. The one night, clearly, there was something very powerful that happened. I know that there was definitely a direct communication, and I was given very important information. My issue is I can't remember the specifics, but I can't get it out of my mind that I know I was told something important, and there was a very important interaction that occurred. Like, I keep beating myself up, like, try to remember, try to remember, try to remember. And I remember at the time waking up thinking, this is really important, you need to remember it. And then when I got up in the morning, I couldn't. I reached out to you because I know that you also do a lot of work with dreams and dreaming. And I did receive your book in the mail, by the way, Midnight Pages. I have to tell you, I love the cover of it. I'm very sort of tactile, and I love that visual. I have perused the book. I'm interested to get started with it. I haven't, excuse or not. The house is actually very torn up in the middle of this reconstruction, so this just isn't the time to do it. And I've picked it up a couple of times thinking maybe if I really started using the exercises in the book, I could get back to whatever communication I had that night. I was hoping maybe we could talk about that today, because I'm thinking I'm not the only person these things happen to with dreams.
Absolutely. Whether you're trying to do that kind of inner exploration in that theta state, the state where you're starting to fall asleep, and the risk is you're going to fall asleep and not remember or not wake up in time to pick up a thread of it, is the same thing that happens with dreams, especially in the beginning of trying to work with dreams, where the key thing is you've got to remember some fragment of it so you have something to play with and dialogue with. There's a couple of ways to beat yourself up. Obviously, it's not the way I would want you to go. You know, this is a playful exercise, as all life really ideally is, that we're just learning and tripping from one lesson to the next. Trust that the part of your psyche that needed that connect with the inner sense to the beyond, or to whatever it is that you connected with that is benevolent, loving, supporting you, sending you love and good wishes, that the subconscious and unconscious level is doing its work. It's like when I'm working with somebody who's writing, they are I haven't written anything. I think about the book all the time, but I'm daydreaming, but not writing. There's a lot of subconscious work being done there. And I'm going to say that the same is true for that exercise that you did with the inner sense work. Trust that something is at play, whether it is conscious to you right now or not. And when you're ready for it, that's when it starts to show up. The same as with dreaming. The ones that are lost, that you feel like, can't get that one back, the first thing to do is to let it go, trusting that it will resurface again in another dream, a more evolved dream, because you will have been working on it subconsciously, in some waking moment that you go, oh, okay, I think that's part of what that was. So some part of you is working on it. So a couple of simple steps. When you're trying to get back to a dream or an experience like the one you're describing, instead of reaching for the what was it, see if you can quiet yourself and go within to the place that I talked about, the inner, that is past all the senses, and see if you can find the feeling tone of the message, the feeling tone of the experience. And often that feeling tone comes with a sense of a vibration of color, a vibration of sound or temperature, if that makes any sense. You're associating things that don't necessarily normally go together, like a feeling and a color. Following the symbols and signs of your life and your dream life, things start to overlap. And that has been one of my biggest aha moments, and also one of my most important teachings, I think. Watch in your life where things start to overlap. So you can go to the feeling tone, and you can begin to see if there's anything there for you to remind you about that experience. We always say in dream work to always have a notebook beside the bed and always write down whatever fragment you can the minute you wake up and have some recollection. So it might just be the feeling tone is all that's left, and like that wisp of smoke, that too might be fading away, and you can just jot down what's there. Feeling the color yellow, very excited. You know what I mean? Something along that line. Or there's a fragment there that would be, it was a baby bear, I was in the woods. Like whatever fragment that you can get down on paper that you can revisit later. We also have a technique where if you are not willing to kind of wake up and write, I have a couple people I work with who, like me, are insomniacs. So it's scary sometimes to think, I just had a meaningful dream, but if I let myself wake up now and really write it down, tomorrow will be shot. I will be useless all day tomorrow. We give it an anchor. The dream, we say the dream is about, we were dancing. We might just say to ourselves, while performing a physical anchor like making a fist or tapping our chest or snapping our finger, ballet. And you've now given yourself an anchor. When you hear the word ballet in the morning, when you remember that anchor ballet, hopefully up will pop more of the dream. So that's just a clue, a kind of way to cue yourself to remember that. But in terms of the one that you had, my next practice to you would be to go back into that inner sense place. And I could tell you a practice to do that. See if you can identify the feeling tone and just be in the spaciousness of your inner space and invite the feeling tone to return. And then see what else shows up in terms of conversation. So that would be one place to start.
Wow, those are some...
I could tell. Do you want me to go ahead and tell you about my little process? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, I've done, I know you're supposed to do the book, and I've even had like a little hand voice recorder, but it always seems so vivid and it seems so clear, and it's like, I get it. This is super important. And I feel awake, and I'm like, I'll remember it in the morning, which of course I don't. So
you won't.
I'm really, please share your process.
Okay, so the first thing when that happens in the morning, you go, I don't remember it. It's like, it's okay, it did its work. The next thing to remember is the dreams that we think, we wake up in the middle of the night, and when you said, I get it, we don't, we never do. Because it's part of the unconscious, we are never looking at what we think we're looking at. The purpose, and I've studied a lot, Louise von Franz, who was a student of Carl Jung and Jung's teaching about dreams, in addition to Marion Woodman, who talks about the symbols that show up in dreams and in our waking life as well. The dream never tells us what we already know. The dream is never going to share with you something you could figure out with your mentality on your own. It always tells you, and I have these great notes here. First of all, it is always true. Carl Jung said that everything you dream is always telling the truth. Now, that doesn't mean it predicts the future. That doesn't mean it's an accurate snapshot of your daily life. There's something true in the dream for the dreamer. The dream doesn't lie. The dream doesn't manufacture something meant for somebody else. Trusting that the dream means something and beginning your dream analysis or your inner sense experience with the sentence that says, I don't know what this means, but, and then ask the question of the dream, what do you have to tell me? And then we shut up and we stop trying to interpret. Interpreting, I think, is one of the biggest things that gets in the way of using our dreams to chart our way through the forest of our lives. My belief is that life is constantly sending us signs, symbols, archetypes, coincidences, synchronicities in our waking life as well as in our dream life. The divine leaves us clues. And when we don't pay attention to the most obvious clues in our life is when we get bogged down in our own story and the things we believe about this dream that we're living. And I'm choking up because I've been doing that this week. I've been forgetting to look for the bigger signs and trying to chart my course with just my drive, determination, will, and rational mind. And we know none of that works. So between those two things, the dream world and following the symbols and signs in your waking world, like when you do a meditation for the inner senses, for example, between those practices, you actually are provided a map. The divine gives us a map to what is our next choice? What is next best for us? What is it that wants to be known? Even if you think about the disappearing of a message or a dream, you can inquire of that. One of the active imagination exercises that Carl Jung taught was to put that question, that object or person from the dream, that experience that you had in a chair, imagine it in a chair opposite you, and you're going to be in dialogue with it. So I studied Gestalt psychotherapy, and we did a very similar thing where you have the empty chair and you put into it the person you have an issue with, the situation you want resolved, the part, and in this case, the part of yourself, your psyche, that has a message for you that was delivered through the dream. For example, John Denver showed up for me in a dream recently. Now, this was my avatar from the time I'm 12 years old, right? He was Jesus and handsome, and he was everything all rolled into one for me with this message of the mountains and nature and freedom. And I had to sit John Denver across from me and say, why did you show up in my dream? Why now? And what was this all about? And then I had to shut up and listen. In my dream class just last night, we played with this, but only for about 9 minutes. And 2 of my students were really angry that more didn't come out. Well, I was trying to get more out of it. Let it take the time it takes. Let it take the time it takes. You're sitting and having a conversation with a part of you that wants to give you information. Maria Louise von Franz said, you can never see your own back. There'll always be things that you don't know. But a dream won't waste spit telling you things that you already know. So there's something there for you, something valuable there for you. And really it's about creating that space within to hear it, whether it's the kind of meditative experience that you took part in very actively or the dream life where we go. And, dreaming can also be very active, particularly if you do lucid dreaming, particularly if you make intentions and make requests of your dreams before you go to sleep. I could branch off in 2 different places right now. I could talk more about dream, or I could talk about how to get to the inner sense through a meditative practice, and I could quickly outline that. Or if you have questions, we can go that way too.
Well, I would like to go down both those paths, but I do have 2 questions. Are you willing to share what John said back to you?
Okay. I was recently offered a difficult choice, and what John reminded me of was the terrible consequences of one road if I were to travel down that road. And for all sorts of reasons, he was representative of those terrible choices that were quite traumatizing back when I was much younger. And it pertained to today in a way that I was not putting together. And so it really informed a choice that I was trying to make very recently. There was some significant material there, right? And at first, I didn't want to know. I was looking at other aspects of the dream at first. first. I was like, all right, well, why the setting we were in? Why did I ask, can I take your magazine? All these silly little peripheral parts. And I realized this isn't the point. He showed up, and in the dream I was like, because I do some lucid dreaming pretty just without trying. It's just sort of a blended thing. And so in the dream I was like, well, we know he's dead. So why is dead John Denver here trying to talk to me about something? And when I woke up, that's the piece I remembered. And, I said, there must be a reason for that. So it was kind of deep, kind of cool. Although you can learn things from all aspects of the dream. And so the practice that I recommend is you could pick up absolutely any aspect. It doesn't have to be the person who shows up. It could be the fire that you were sitting around when you had, you're dreaming about a fire. You could talk to the fire. You could do the active imagination with any aspect of the dream that you like. Knowing that that part of the dream is part of you. In what way is John Denver me? Well, he represents the 12-year-old girl who was looking for consolation and direction and inspiration. And then I want you to know that whatever you come up with is only layer one, right? There's always another layer and another layer. And you may have dialogues for months, weeks, years. You might work on a dream for years, particularly if it's one of those big dreams, the archetypal dreams, which feel different than the other ones. You will remember the archetypal dream no matter what. You'll remember it as if it were laid out like a scene from a movie. It will touch you to the point that you are suddenly awakened in a new way. Those dreams are the ones that kind of walk alongside of you. They're the ones that you go, I always knew this. I always understood that this was true, capital T, about my life. It will walk alongside of you. It will teach you things for years, for the rest of your life. We don't get many of those. Some people maybe don't get any. I don't know. I've had them. I have one in particular that walks beside me all the time, and I can draw on all the time. And just going there will bring me to a feeling of I'm at home, and it will bring tears because it's such the perfect place of learning and light, comfort, compassion, hope, and a real sense of here's what I'm here to do on this planet. So let me quickly tell you about how to go to the inner senses place. And you can practice this if you have trouble falling asleep as well, to get into a theta state and then to fall into sleep. It works best if you can see some things. So sometimes at night it's harder, although if the moon's out, it's the perfect full moon night. You start by letting yourself see everything that your eyes take in, just silently counting them. So I'm looking outside right now and I might go, I see trees, so I'll go 1, house 2, white on the windowsill 3, the light in front of me 4. And so you're just counting to about 100 of all the things you can see. And when you've exhausted, you've gotten to 100, you go to hearing. What are 100 things that you can hear? Then you can go to taste and smell. I combine them because it's hard to come up with 100 of taste and smell, so I put them together. Taste and smell, and maybe you'll get to 20. Maybe you'll get to 15. Shoot for 100, but see how far you get. And then go to physical sensation. The body on the bed, my fingers are falling asleep, my stomach is gurgling. And along the line, you can also combine this one if you want or do it separately. What are the feelings, emotions that come up in my body? The sensations, Joe Dispenza talks about the body is remembered emotion. As you get sensations from your body, you're also getting feelings, emotions from your body. Count those up to 100. And when you've exhausted all of the sensory stuff that we are so used to operating with, there starts to be this quiet space that you can then say, and now I'm going to explore the inner sense. You've kind of cleared the decks, and now you can imagine going within to a blank blackboard, to a space inside of your torso somewhere. You could project it out. You can imagine that you're in a room just behind your eyes, looking at a stage or a screen. It starts to make that stuff less loud. You're worrying less about all the stimuli of our senses, and you're able to go within more easily. And if you do it before going to sleep, you'll find, personally, I find it's really monotonous to go through the relaxation exercises of tense your toes or feel your toes, now your feet, now your calves. I just like, oh my God. To me, this is just an alternative to doing that progressive relaxation of feeling the various parts of your body. That's my alternative. And it leaves me with this, okay, when all that goes away, what am I left with? I'm left with the space there where my breathing comes from. I'm left with the space where something else is living me, where I am getting my vitality, where my higher self can begin to speak to me about how I'm being propelled, driven, called, moved through life. Does that make sense?
It sure does. It's beautiful, powerful, and very expansive, but also has a logicalness to it. I like that. Interesting. You talked about lucid dreaming. I hear the term a lot. What is lucid dreaming?
Yep. Lucid dreaming is when you wake up in the dream and become an actor, a conscious actor in your own dreams. It's definitely a process. I've noticed on YouTube, you can find many, many guided meditations to lead you into lucid dreaming. I can't speak to or for any of them because that's not how I learned it. I practiced it over years and can pretty much do lucid dreaming when I want to do lucid dreaming. There are a few small and easy ways that you'll start to do it that feel kind of like, oh, okay, that's the beginning. For example, if you are in a dream and maybe you've had this experience and it's scaring you and you all of a sudden remember, oh my God, this isn't real, I'm dreaming. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Have you ever had that experience?
Sure have.
And you wake yourself up from the dream that you've been having. Okay, that's lucid dreaming. If you are asleep, having a dream, and you wake up and you want to go back into the dream and finish it up, or you want to see if it could have a different outcome, you could say, no, let me go back into the feeling tone of that dream. I want to see if I can end that differently. And when you can do that, that's also a form of lucid dreaming. I used to get really frustrated that I'd have these dreams that were sort of unfinished. Now I don't have to have that anymore. I can go back into that same place. Lucid dreaming is you could kick it off by first doing the practice of remembering dreams, doing the practice of every time you wake up, write down whatever fragment. In the morning, spending the time to write down whatever of the dream you can recall. You can begin also to drink a big glass of water before you go to bed so that you will be compelled to wake up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night. You'll probably wake yourself from a dream, and now you have a really tangible way, and you've had to get up and go in the other room, leave your journal in the bathroom with a pen, and you're already up, you're already awake, and you can write it down. Stay in as dark a space as you can. You don't want to come up out of that theta state. You want to stay in the state of that half-dreaming, daydreaming space and writing anything you can remember. Lucid dreaming then grows out of that by intending when you go to sleep, I intend to wake up in my dream. I intend to be a participant in my dream. It also begins by having intentions for your dream. Tonight I will dream a dream about how I am safe in my life no matter what nightmare confronts me. Tonight I will dream the safety of my experience no matter what multi-dimensional self I happen to wake up in during my dream or my waking life. Tonight I will have a dream that will help me solve this problem. Also, you can intend to remember the dream. So as you're drifting off, before you fall asleep, tonight I will remember my dreams. Then that morphs into when that's regular. Tonight, I will be an actor in my dream. Tonight, I will do some lucid dreaming. I will wake up in my dream.
Wow, those are great tools. As soon as you said the water, I was like, well, I'll be getting up, going to the bathroom with that.
I heard you take a breath. I was paused to see if you had something you wanted to put out there for me.
Oh, no, I love those tools. And actually putting the notebook in the bathroom there is just such a spectacular idea. So you have given me tons of direction, insights, and little tools to revisit the question, who's breathing me, and be more specific with framing my intention with it. I'm excited to delve into this again, and actually I'm excited to use these tools for different things before I go to bed at night to help me get through this physical world that we're in. You mentioned a few times when you were working with people, you mentioned a class. Do you do formal teaching with this? Do you do it on a one-to-one? Do you do group teaching? It sounds like it. What does that look like?
Yeah, I do a group teaching now on Wednesday nights. Another section is opening up on it in March. And so we come together in a relatively small group. We go over the basics of this kind of work. I kind of lay out some lessons in the first time, but then it becomes a very interactive process. Carl Jung used to say, I wish I had a Jung to go over my dreams with. And he would find either a student or the least educated, the least savvy person he knew. And he'd sit down across from the person and tell the person his dream. And the person would throw back absolutely meaningless things, but it would prod enough in Jung that he would get insights into his own dream. So we kind of participate in that. And as I do teachings and unroll other ways that we can be working with our dreams, sometimes somebody will pop up with, I had a dream about, can we talk about this? And then we just pepper that person with some questions. Believe me, no matter what, the dream is about you, and your associations are the ones that matter. Not the dream dictionary, not dream interpretation, not me as a teacher, not Jung as the archetype creator. Edgar Cayce created an entire dream dictionary saying it was channeled information. All of those those can be helpful to spark the imagination when you're interpreting your own dream, but it's all about your associations. And so that's what this class is. This is a class that teaches how do we make our own associations with our own dreams, and not only the sleeping dreams, but the symbols and signs that we have during this waking life, this waking dream that we're walking around in. And between those two things, you will have a map to make choices, to be happier, to get to where you're supposed to go as a soul on a journey. You can begin to really live your life instead of your life living you willy-nilly. By that, I don't mean the being, the thing, the force, the field that is breathing you. I'm talking about the forces all around you that make you feel like, what is that? Bing Bang Rabbit, that you're bouncing off the walls all the time with so much stimuli. That guy stops pinging and you start being centered and driven. And let me tell you what happens. You start listening to the symbols and signs of your dreams, days and nights, and you start to laugh out loud at how the universe, the goddess, the divine, yourself, the field, whatever you want to call it, is showing you the direction. You will be like, oh my God, thank you. It will be uncanny. It will be unbelievable. That's what we work on. It's really a sign and symbol course. It's Wednesday nights, 7 o'clock Eastern time. I will have something up on my website to direct you if you're interested at bellywitch.com.
Beautiful, and I'll make sure that I have all of that information in the show notes. The other thing that you talked about with the importance of just going beyond, I think, what many of us think about when we think about what did this dream mean is using more of our senses, the feeling being so important, the colors and all those different things.
When it comes to dreams, we do have to contextualize them. We want to contextualize our dream. It's helpful to know what was happening on the day of the dream. What was the feeling tone of the week or the month that we were having? What else was playing out for us? Those are kind of the puzzle pieces that we start to put together. Yeah, what works really well if you are not a great meditator or you feel like you really struggle with meditation is to do that practice of slowly eliminating all of your major senses, starting with sight and then going to hearing, taste, smell, and then physical and emotional sensation, because it just helps still and quiet the whole body. And doing it during the day prior to meditation will deepen your meditation, will deepen your connection to the messages that want to come through to you from your inner senses. Really recommend it not only for recalling a dream, but also to be in a deeper state of meditation during the day. That's kind of my main practice.
Nice. I'm really grateful that I reached back out with you with my experience with the exercise and what came out of it, because this conversation has just been chock full of so much information that really honestly changes everything when it comes to dreaming. So I just want to really thank you for your willingness to come back to the show. We'll throw this out there.
Yay, good.
You have a gift for this. You have a gift for this. I can see where you are making such a difference in people's lives and on their journey and helping them come to their own clarity and figuring this out on their own.
Oh, that's such a good way to put it. Yeah, thank you so much for saying so. And I'm so grateful to you to have me on and to keep chatting about this. It really is a passion of mine. You know, you find those when you realize, I was 14 when I started this, and that's still going on in my life. And I think that's where Carl Jung, when he was deciding what to do as he got older, went back to when he was 7 or 8 years old and asked, what did I love to do? I think that's a really beautiful way to start exploring who am I really and what am I really supposed to be doing. This is definitely that for me. And so I'm thrilled to share, and I hope people will reach out. And Sandra, thank you so much for having me on again. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, whether it's just one-to-one or it's on your podcast. And I recommend Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious to everybody. So thank you for your calling to put this podcast out there. I think it's really needed.
Well, I appreciate that. Anything else you want to leave for the listeners?
I would just love everybody to be paying attention, watching for the signs, just even today. Intend to see something. Intend to see something that you really want to see and don't always see in a given day, and then watch for it and see what shows up.
Great words. You know what I really like about this, Diane, is I love your enthusiasm, and I can feel your passion and excitement when you're talking about the dreams. What I find really cool about it is I could see where you can use it for healing, helping people with the direction and insights or whatever help people need with. But the coolest thing about this work that you're offering is you're offering people something where they can be independent in doing this themselves. They don't need to go to other people. You're basically teeing them up to be free and free and independent in doing all of this. It's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. Right. Thanks. As a teacher and a coach, I think we have to be working ourselves out of a job. When I was in traditional ministry, I said that all the time, that you don't need the intermediary. Practitioner who you're working with should be working themselves out of a job. They should be strengthening you, giving you the tools, helping you just open your eyes and see what's already inborn. It's all there. It's all at hand. Every scripture of any nature will come down to this one thing, that the realm of God, all is within you. And so really it's all in that inner space that I talk about exploring, and the realm of God is within you. How do you get there? Many paths up the mountain, many paths to within your soul. I teach signs and symbols, and I help you look for them and read them through your life. Writing to me, so that's why I emphasize writing down the dreams. Everybody does. Writing for me is a magical technology to help us grasp the signs. I have journals and journals that I can go back to and pick symbols and signs, and weeks and months later, it starts to make sense that I can create a new story for myself. You said to me at the beginning of this, I'm watching the words I use. If you remember, you used a word and said, I'm trying to watch the words I use. And I thought that was so coincidental for me because of the work I was doing right before we spoke. Yes, we need to be watching the words, and when you write them down, that's exactly what you do. And you know what happens? You meet yourself on the page. You'll meet yourself in your dream journal. You'll meet yourself when you're keeping a journal about all the signs you see around you. And there you are. And now you can do all sorts of work, and you no longer need me. You don't even need a podcast. Whoops, sorry. I don't mean to take away business. But it's true. We start to be able to really be our own kind of guru. We're directing our own unfolding.
And that is such truth. I love it. Yeah, I use the word frustrating because we had a hard time getting started with the recording of the podcast because I was having a lot of connectivity issues with it. And I was hesitant to say the word, and then I just threw it out there. So I love where your heart's at with this, and I am on board 100%. No, you don't say you're sorry to me. I am right on board with that. I love it, and I think that that's great. I think that's our biggest gift we can leave in the world. Thank you again. Thanks a lot, Diane.
Absolutely. Have a great day. Thanks, everybody.
Until next time. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us for this episode of Wild Souls Gatherings Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. To find out more about our guests, how to contact them, or detail on this episode, please see our show notes. You can also visit us at our website, wildsoulsgathering.com. We would love to hear from our visitors what you thought of this show, what you would like to see and hear in the future, questions you may have. Go to podinbox.com/happy hour for the spiritually curious. You can leave either a voice or traditional message for us. This is your host, Dr. Sandra Marie, sending each of you peace and love. Until we meet again, embrace your wild soul.